Alright, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wassalatu wassalam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Session on fiqh of zakah and fasting. Today let's go ahead and talk about zakah for a little bit. We are halfway through the month, we're at the halfway point, and I'm starting to get a lot of questions on zakah, so let's go ahead and go over some of the fundamentals, inshallah. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them as we go along. You don't have to wait till the end in order to ask the question, so at any time ask a question. If there's something that is unclear, then please by all means ask me to clarify or to reword something, no problem, inshallah. So the concept of zakah is the following. Zakah is a means or a tool, a system of redistributing wealth. And zakah is quite phenomenal when you study it at the economic level. And there's definitely social benefits and without a doubt, spiritual benefits as well. But the economic benefits that come with zakah are really something that should be studied more and appreciated more, especially in our times in America with the current economy shifting heavily in favor of the super wealthy, not just the wealthy, the super wealthy, which is referred to as the top 1% or the top 10th of a percent, who own 90% of America's money, or the wealth in America. And the problem, or how this occurs, is that when the economy falls, right, and this is very, very standard, right, according to economic theorists, there's a kind of a cycle that the economy goes through. By default, no doubt, eventually, no matter how strong an economy is, it's going to go through a recession. That's normal economics. That's because certain things happen, certain things that are unpredicted, something goes wrong, whatever it is, but it goes through that. So the goal of economists is to, how do we prolong a strong economy, and how do we shorten a recession? It's not how do we prevent a recession, but how do we shorten it? Or could be how to prevent a recession, but the fact of the matter is these things occur. Now, in America, what ends up happening is when a recession occurs, the wealthy people take advantage of it, right? People lose jobs, people lose money, they lose their savings, and no doubt even the wealthy are affected by it. But when the market starts to recover, right, and you have new opportunities to invest, who have the money to invest in the first place? Well, the wealthy. So the wealthy put their money in these investments, nothing unethical about that, and then all the new generated money ends up going to a very small amount of people instead of being distributed across the board, right? That's what's happening. And essentially, it'll reach a point where, people have so little money, and then a few hundred people have all of the money. And I've recently seen articles about how America is now an oligarchy, which means that it is ruled by a few people, like a few families. And no doubt that's concerning. So how does the zakat fall into this? Well, zakat helps redistribute the money in order to keep the balance, right? So that too much money doesn't end up in the hands of a small amount of people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in the Quran. كَيْ لَا يَكُونَ دُولَةً بَيْنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ مِنْكُمْ. So that money isn't only circulating between the wealthy among you. So zakat comes and it creates a system, a way, a method of redistributing wealth. So the wealthy person gives 2.5% of their wealth to one of these 8 categories, and the primary 2 categories, or the primary category, is people who are in need, right? So people who are either in need because financially they cannot make ends meet, or they're barely keeping their head above water. People who are in need in terms of debt. They're in debt, okay, fine, they're okay, meaning they're living, they're able to make the rent, they're able to pay their utilities, but their debt is really strangling them. That's also a category. Someone who is traveling and then they lost their financial means, they got stuck, you can help them with zakat. So 4 of the 8 really are people who are in financial need. So what happens is you take 2.5% of that wealth, and now it's being distributed on these classes or these people who are in need of that wealth. Now, to continue in terms of the economic benefits there, these people who are in need, when they have a little bit more wealth, what they use the wealth for is to purchase, right, their essentials, food, drink, right, buy their children some things, pay for education. And what ends up happening is when this wealth is distributed on this amount of people, now you have more people in the market purchasing the essentials in the market, food and drink. That's what we're referring to. And, the essentials in terms of supplies, kitchen utensils, etc. Now you have more people in the market purchasing. So demand is higher. And in response to that higher demand, manufacturers we need more supply. And this ends up doing one of two things, or both. It ends up making these industries like the agricultural industry, those who produce the necessities of life, it makes more room for new investors to come in. So new investors, in order to meet the supply, or the manufacturers themselves will increase their production. And as a result, what happens is with the increased supply, the prices start to either stabilize or go down. It protects the prices or it causes them to go down. And when the prices are lower, now the standards of living are more accessible to the average individual. And thus the economy stays healthy, right? So look, for example, now what's happening with milk. Millions of gallons of milk are thrown away daily, right? To the extent that farmers are just saying, just come and take it for free. You just pay for the transportation and we'll give you for free, right? Why is this happening? Is there somehow a lesser need for milk? Yeah, sure, because schools now are closed, and that really hit the milk market. But at the same time, when you go and purchase milk, it's not like there's 1,000 milk bottles waiting and no one's buying them, right? So what's going on? Well, the corporations who are mass producing milk, they don't want the prices to go down because there is a surplus of milk. Now, Islamically, that is very unethical. So these corporations are kind of forcing these farmers who are not of that high caliber, they're forcing them to throw away all their hard work and just get rid of the milk. And people who could have benefited from that, the average individual who could have benefited from cheaper milk prices, are now suffering because these super corporations don't want to reduce their prices because that will harm their profits. So Zakah comes and really stabilizes that. It's telling the super wealthy there are limits. It's not that Islam doesn't want people to be wealthy. Wealth and poverty are innate to life. This is how the world works, right? This is how the world works. So it's not about not making people not being rich or completely eradicating poverty, and that's almost impossible at the global level. So there will always be people who are poor, but the idea is how do we stabilize the system to where money and wealth isn't just circulating in the hands of a few people who will then take advantage of that and keep prices where they want it to be and use their wealth to bribe and to fund lawmakers into supporting and promoting and initiating bills and laws that support their favor, right? So a lot of these corporations that outwardly they seem like they are a very charitable, altruistic corporation that supports minority rights and the rights of poor people, and you'll find that when there's a major charity event going on, they give some money, right? At the same time, you find that these same corporations are funding lawmakers to pass bills that essentially put more burdens and responsibilities on the worker to alleviate that from the corporation itself. So the workers who need a financial help, need a boost financially, are penalized because the corporations are now running the show. And the corporations remove a lot of their daily daily production costs or their annual costs, whatever, by placing these laws, and then that penalize these poor people. Also, another thing, notice how Trump, for example, the whole Trump fiasco 2016. Mahdi Hassan, who's a very famous journalist who was on Al Jazeera and other news outlets. I'm sure most of us know him. When the whole election process was going on, he was questioning, he was trying to figure out who's supporting Trump. And he finds that it's the wealthy people, and concludes that, therefore, people are racist, right? It's not the white working class who are the main supporters of Trump, but rather the wealthy people who are supporting Trump, the white and wealthy people. And he kind of correlated that with racism. What's promoting that, what can explain it is racism. But I think I have a different opinion. And that is, these wealthy people, it's not because of Trump's rhetoric or his racism or his immigration policies. It's not for that they supported him. It's because they know Trump is a wealthy individual, and with that access to law, he is going to do things for the wealthy people. So they knew that Trump will make them a lot of money, and therefore they supported him. What do these major corporations benefit from racism? Nothing. Unless racism is a means of economic gain for them, right? It's all about the money. Okay, so that is the idea of zakat. Not to go too far, so we can get into some of the ahkam, the rulings. That is the idea of zakat. So when we give zakat, essentially what goes around comes around, right? And this isn't in the negative sense, but when you give zakah, essentially that zakah will function in a manner that ends up benefiting you sooner or later, either with the lowering of prices or the circulation of wealth, and preventing these super wealthy from becoming completely in control of the economy and of law. And they're pretty close to that. So when it comes to ahkam al-zakah, the simple things, 2.5% of the wealth. How do we calculate zakah? This is the most common question. What do I calculate and how do I do it? It's actually quite simple. Do the following, okay? Now, you have differences of opinions. And if you hear one imam saying this and it contradicts what I'm saying, that's okay. You'll find that there are differences of opinion between scholars, right? There isn't complete clarity as to what is zakah eligible in some of these areas. So if you are kind of mixed up, confused, whose opinion do I take, then you as an individual, what you're responsible for doing is taking information from someone who is qualified to give that information. Now, some scholars would say take from the most knowledgeable of them, okay? And other scholars will say take from that which is most beneficial to you, is easiest for you. That's also okay. Why? Because all of these opinions are going back to the four schools, and all of the four schools are going back to Quran and Sunnah. So it's rooted in Quran and Sunnah. No doubt one of them is the more correct opinion, and one of them has stronger support in Quran and Sunnah. But since you as the individual do not have access or do not have the tools to differentiate between what is truer and what is weaker, then you have that choice. A third opinion is going to say choose that which it has most taqwa in it, most piety in it, so that on the day of judgment there aren't any gray areas, any gray in your book of deeds that you have to be accountable for in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you choose which one you want to do. So going back to how do we calculate zakah, you have very common things that most people have here in America. First of all, a bank account. Second are investments such as stocks, mutual funds, etc. And then third, you have plans like 401ks, Roth, pensions, retirement funds, etc. So you have three main categories of wealth. The bank accounts are the clearest. You have saving accounts and you have checking accounts. When you go to calculate zakah, do the following. Take everything that's in your bank account, both savings and checking account. That's number one. Calculate that and you have a number. Let's just say you have 10,000 in all of your bank accounts. The second thing, you look into your investments, your stocks. Okay, you have stocks, and let's say you have the value of your stocks are $10,000 today, and you're planning to give zakat today, and you're calculating for today, and you have $10,000 worth of stocks. Now you take that 10,000, add it to the previous 10, you have 20,000. Now you have these retirement plans and these funds. This is where it gets a little bit more complicated, but inshallah I'll try and simplify it for you. There are, as far as I know, there are three types of retirement plans or these funds, investment accounts. You have accounts that a person cannot or does not have access to them until a particular age, which is age of retirement, 65, 67, whatever it is. You have that. These accounts, you don't calculate in your zakah. Right? Why? Because you don't have access to it. So the Sharia isn't going to force you to pay from something you don't have access to. Right? So the idea, if we tie this to the whole concept of zakah, zakah is meant to keep money circulating in the economy. Okay? All right? So that people spend and the economy is healthy. Now, when your funds are frozen in an account and the accountant is, or the company, the firm is using that money to invest, so you have the goal of zakah that is being fulfilled, and number two, you don't have access to that money in order to invest it in order to use it in the first place. So it's considered to be a loan. You are loaning this firm your money and they invest it and then you get part of that return. So it's considered a loan to them. And loans you don't pay zakah on because it will just deplete the money, and that is harm for the person. So there is no zakah on that kind of account. The second type of account is you have access to it. You don't have to wait to a certain age. But if you withdraw it, there are major penalties. Okay, so 20% is what I hear most. You withdraw this before a certain time, before the end of the contract, the firm will penalize you 20% of that money. This you don't have to pay the zakah on. Why? Because of the penalty. The Sharia is not going to force you to endure major penalty to pay zakah. Okay, so why does a person say, you could just leave it there and then just pay from your own bank account? Well, not everyone has that access. So let's say someone has $100,000 in one of these accounts, but in their bank account they only have $2,000, right? Well, how are they going to pay zakah on $100,000, just $2,500 that they don't have access to in the first place? So that's a harm for them. So this is also considered to be a loan type of contract, and there is no zakah on it. The third type of 401k accounts, or these retirement funds, or these investment accounts, are those which you have access to at any time without major penalty. All that is incurred on that amount is transaction fees, okay, and or taxes. So for some accounts, they invest the money before removing the tax, before taking out taxes, and then when the person withdraws their amount, that's when they pay taxes. Other accounts you pay taxes before depositing the money, and then when you withdraw it, there are no taxes on that. So how do we deal with each? For the accounts that the person will have to pay tax after withdrawing it, or when withdrawing it, they remove that amount from the zakat calculator. So let's say they have $10,000 in a Roth account that is pre-taxed, right? Their account is pre-taxed. When they withdraw the money, that's when it's taxed. So let's say taxes are, I'm just throwing out a number here, 10%. And the person has $10,000 in this Roth account. Now, minus the minus the tax amount, you're left with $9,000. Add that 9,000 to your zakah calculator. Okay? If your account is taxed already, then you just take the full amount and you add that to the zakah calculator. So we said $10,000 from the bank accounts, $10,000 in your stocks, in terms of stocks, and then you have $10,000, let's just say, in your taxed Roth account that you can withdraw the money from anytime. Now you have $30,000. That is what you have to pay zakah. You pay zakah on those $30,000. And it's very simple to do. Take 30,000, divide that by 40, and that equals whatever you get. That is the amount of zakah you pay. Okay, so I hope that is clear. Dividing by 40 is 2.5, comes to 2.5% of that entire wealth. Is there zakah on college saving accounts? So I'm not too familiar with college saving accounts, but it's going to be like the 401ks. So if you have access to that money at any time, where you can withdraw it, then you have to pay zakah on it. If that money can only be withdrawn when the child or the person is enrolled in college, then they don't pay zakah on it until the time where they have access to it happens. So to kind of clarify that a little bit, let's just say you have a college fund, and it's called, I guess, 529 accounts. You have a college fund, right? And let's say the college fund has $100,000 in it, and your child turns 18, and at 18, the account is opened, and now you withdraw it all at once. When you withdraw that money, you pay 1 year zakah on it immediately, right? So that would equal 2,500, and then the rest is yours for college. If, however, the account works where every semester you send the bill, the tuition, to the firm or the accountant, and then from that account they pay the college fund, then you don't pay zakah on it, because again, you don't have access to that. Wallahu ta'ala alam. This is the first time I come across these college funds, so I'll do my best to look further into it. Please, if you have any questions, do ask. Okay. All right. So continuing, let's look at when it comes to homes and real estate. This is also a common question. When it comes to real estate, we ask the question: is that real estate property of yours to where it's considered to be part of your capital, or is that property for business purposes? So if the property is yours, meaning this is a home you live in, or a home you plan on living in, or a home that you plan on giving to one of your children, and you have it, right, and it's sitting there. It's not for business purposes, it's for living purposes. All these real estate, you don't pay zakat on it. Why? Because it's part of, it's not a type of investment that is, meant to circulate the market, the home in of itself. I understand the housing market is part of the economy, but the home itself doesn't have that meaning. So there's no zakah on that. If the person owns these properties for business purposes, then there are one or two possibilities that come to my mind. And the first one is rent. The person purchased the home and then they rent it out to other people. There is no zakah on the home value or the value of the home itself. So let's say the home is worth $800,000 for us here in SoCal. That's very standard. Just in case someone from outside of SoCal is thinking, oh my God, $800,000. So let's say $800,000. You don't pay zakah on the $800,000 every year, but rather the money, the income, the revenue that you are making from the rent, you deposit it where? In a bank account, right? Or in stocks or wherever. And then that is calculated into the zakah. So the house isn't, the value of the house isn't calculated into zakah, but rather the rent that you are depositing in your bank account or you have in your hands, that is what's calculated into zakah. If the person is purchasing property in order to sell it, right, they're selling the property for ownership and not for renting, then when the person sells the property, they pay zakah on it once when they sold it. So let's say they own a home, and the home is worth $1 million. I'm just using these numbers to make it a little bit easier to calculate. The home is worth $1 million and they sell it, right? When they sell it, they take $25,000 out and they give it to zakah immediately. It goes to zakah. That is in terms of property. Now, another common question is, we'll conclude with this unless you all have questions. Another common question is jewelry. Someone has gold or silver and it's jewelry. Do they pay zakah on it? The majority opinion, the Malikis and the Shafi'is and the Hanbalis, they say there is no zakah on jewelry, even if your jewelry is worth $1 million. And what entails something to be jewelry is that the person uses it, they wear it. Even if they wear it once a year, or once every now and then on an occasion like a wedding or a Eid or a party, whatever, right? It's not common use, but it's occasional use. So long as it's there for jewelry and the lady, the sister, uses it for jewelry every now and then there is no zakah on it. The Hanafis say there is zakah on it. And I know many of us are Hanafis and they want to continue to follow that, so that is their opinion. There is zakah on it, and again, it's 2.5% of the value of the jewelry. The others say that there is no zakah on it. Now, let's say someone has gold jewelry and they have it not for the purpose of jewelry, but for the purpose of value. Gold is an investment. It's a hot investment now, and there's benefits. So they buy gold and they deposit it in a safe in the bank. They pay zakah on that based on the value of that gold, 2.5% of the value. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. I hope I didn't throw a lot of information out there. I know these sessions are a lot more engaging when there's an audience in front of me. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me via email. I'm really answering my phone less due to the hectic schedule that I have, and sometimes I don't. My phone isn't with me, or I am busy doing something else, like giving a talk or doing other work, and I don't have I can't pick up the phone. So if I don't, you're more than welcome to call me at any time. If I don't answer, leave me a message. And inshallah I'll call you back or agree on a time with you for you to call me back, or you can send me an email, and my email address is Tariq, TARIK @ocif.org, and just give me a day or two inshallah to answer the question, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. So I hope this was of benefit to you all. Please pay your zakah. It is a rukun, it is a pillar of our faith. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commonly pairs zakah with salah to emphasize its importance, and you have major and severe harsh consequences for those who don't pay zakah. And just a world that doesn't have zakah is a world where poverty flourishes. So please do pay your zakah. Alhamdulillah, I know American Muslims are very open to zakah. And they very much enjoy giving it because of just the general vibe of altruism and giving back that really American Muslims have developed over the past few decades. So inshallah we'll just conclude with that. Or here I have a question. Is it permissible to take a blood sample while fasting? Yes. Blood tests, blood samples are perfectly fine while fasting. It does not break fast. Because bleeding doesn't break fast by the consensus of scholars. I don't know of an opinion where someone says someone who bleeds, their fast is broken. Likewise, things that enter your skin does not break fast. Right? So anything that enters your skin or exits your skin does not break fast. So if someone were to put blood, insert blood, let's say they're going through I don't know what the term is, transfusion I think of blood. If they're doing that and they can continue to fast, that's perfectly fine. If they're taking out blood for a blood test, something's wrong, a standard procedure, medical exam, their yearly checkup, whatever, that's perfectly fine as well. Zakah isn't broken. Okay, I'll give just a few more seconds because of the delay. If someone else has a question, if not, then inshallah, I will see you at 4 o'clock. Okay, Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.